Hello, and welcome back to the Ask the Color Expert podcast. Today's special guest is Nina Kovner. She is the founder and creator of Passion Squared, and she has done so many things in the industry that I am going to let her tell you what all of them are because she has made so many amazing pivots and shown me personally how to be brave and not sit in your situation when it's no longer working because you feel like you have to. So I'm so excited to have her here with us today and would love to welcome you, Nina, to the podcast.
Thank you, Elaine. It's so cool to be on here. Such an honor. I'm so happy for you and what you've created. It's amazing. I know we have limited time, so I'm not really that great at talking about myself. It's not of interest to me, but just the super short story. I graduated beauty school in 1987, and like any hairdresser, was just excited to do hair. I worked in a salon assisting all through beauty school, so I was set up, like I was ready to go. And I also found a passion for the whole educator world while I was still in school. So by the time I graduated, I was invited to try out to become an educator. I passed. I started doing in-salon classes. And then within a year or so, the local distributor said, "We really need some help. Can we hire you?" So I got tugged into the business side of the business very early in my career. I only did hair a few years, actually, and then went on to work for a global hair care manufacturer for 25 years until I left in 2009 in my mid 40s, and had no idea what I was going to do. And of course, I had a passion around social and digital because I was head of marketing. So I was already kind of deep into what was happening in those mid 2000s or whatever. And so I'm like, these platforms have an incredible opportunity to empower small business. And that's kind of how Passion Squared started. We are an online business, and we, of course, do coaching, education, podcasting, books, the whole nine. And our focus is marketing, because that is my expertise, brand development, and then personal empowerment, because without that, the rest just doesn't really work very well. So yeah. And we just celebrated our 11th birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. I was able to jump on. I wasn't able to be there live, but I was able to catch the replay and it was amazing. My first ebook was your book, Follow Your Heart. I didn't even know how to download it. Like, that's how tech challenged that I was. You were such a pioneer in all things tech for our industry. Like, to me, you were it. Like, you were the only person that introduced me to even using technology. So it's no surprise that your business now is still virtual. I got your inspirational thing of the day text message. That was so cool to me. Like, I was like, how does she do this? Where is it? How is it getting on my phone? I remember being so blown away by that because, again, I had a flip phone. I didn't understand technology, but I literally would wake up in the morning and reach for my phone and be like, what did Nina send me today? So I don't know what that feels like for you now that you see like everybody scrambling to try to figure stuff out, where you're like, I've been doing that since 2012. So that's awesome. And you've never lost your passion. Thankfully, your brand is Passion Squared. You've never lost your passion. You haven't had it easy. You've hit some really rough patches, and I know you suffer from anxiety. And for you to continue to show up bravely and to share your journey, I think you were traveling somewhere recently and you were freaking out a little bit. You're like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, but you share it. I'm sure there's so many people that are at the shows and platform artists that don't share it, that we all look at them and say, oh my gosh, they make it look so easy. But I love that you share that journey and make other people feel like it's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Thank you. I mean, I traveled the world and spoke on stages for over 2 decades, to rooms of 5,000, rooms of 5, rooms of whatever. It wasn't until I left my career that I kind of jumped off that autopilot workaholism situation and went through treatment and started like exploring where my depression, anxiety, all that was coming from. And thus creating an online business, because I let my passport expire. Like I was never going
Mm.
anywhere ever again. Like that was my plan, to literally never step on a plane again. And of course, I have chosen to do that a little bit over these 11 years. However, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. So this last trip, I hadn't traveled for business in a very long time. I hadn't been back to California, well, back to Los Angeles, since I lost pretty much all of my family over the last 3 years. It just was so many different factors. I haven't been in a room full of people without a mask on. Like there's just so many like kind of things happening all at once. And but I did it, and it's interesting because I took about 2 days to agree to that event. And because I knew, like, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I do. And just in those 2 days, that thought process was, if I didn't do that, like if I didn't do it, I just know that I never would probably leave the house again. And I'm not ready to not leave the house again. Like you know what I mean? Like, so it was really kind of, I did not feel ready. I did not want to go, not because I didn't want to do it and see all the
Right.
awesome people. Like, of course, that's like the whole thing. But inside of me, I was like, I can't do this. I did it. It was hard. It was so hard, and incredibly empowering, because I made it. Like I did it. And speaks to so much of what we do in business and in life. Is sometimes we just have to just step into the fire, and of course bring like safety, like surround yourself with as much safety as you can. But this was something I needed to do. And even though it, leveled me emotionally, it empowered me, because I did something that I was so incredibly afraid to do.
Well, I'm sure you had a line out the door when you did get there. I had the unfortunate opportunity to be your neighbor at the ISSE Long Beach show. I only taught the show 1 year. I was so excited. It was like a bucket list thing to hit every single show as a
Yes.
new educator. So I get there and I go to my classroom early because I want to be, it was the quieter day. It was the last day where it's more students. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, oh, I'm teaching hair color fundamentals. My classroom's going to be packed because it's new students. This is great. And I'm walking down the hallway and there's this ginormous line. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They're there before I am. It was your classroom next door. I think the entire building was like this in your classroom. It was amazing. I wanted to leave my classroom and go to your classroom and watch whatever you were teaching. I think I had like 10 people in my room. I was like, damn you, Nina, why are you next to me at the same exact time?
It was timing is everything,
Yeah.
and what I had the opportunity to teach when I did those few ISSEs was what was something people wanted to learn.
Yeah.
That was social and digital. And so I don't think it was really about me, but really more about at that time, that was still kind of like, I don't know what to post. I mean, people still struggle with that, but I mean, back then it was really, people were really wanting to learn more about social and digital. So, well, look, we're here now.
I know. I didn't quit. I didn't let
You
it like get me
didn't.
down, because it happens all the time. Like that's the one thing that I don't love about the in-person shows as both an attendee and an educator is it happened to me again in Premier Orlando this past June. I was at the same time as Jack Martin. I'm like, of course, I want to go to Jack Martin for his gray transformations. I want to leave my own class to go to his class. So I hate that you have to pick this or that. Like, I wish they would stagger them a little bit more to let people go on the floor, then go to a class, then go on the floor, then go to something else. So that's really hard because I'm such an education junkie that, to miss anything. And especially, and that's what I love about what you and I do is there's no missing it. like I knew that you were doing the birthday celebration. I wanted to support your charity. I wanted
Thank
to,
you.
do that. But I was like, I know I can't go live, but I didn't have that, oh, I'm missing this feeling, because
Yeah.
I knew that you were going to send out the replay. So there's pros and cons to both, but I really like that piece of virtual. I just finished a weekend event here in my new hometown. I live in Florida now, and I had 30 people come for a hair color retreat. They're members of my group. And
Amazing.
even though they watched everything live in real time, they kept getting closer and closer and closer and crowding around while we were trying to get good video. And I was like, guys, you don't want to crowd the videographer. We want this so that you can go back and watch it, because when you watch something live and you're in the space, there's all this adrenaline, you're excited, everything's new. And then how many times have you walked out and you're like, wait, what was that second step again? So this way it's both, it's live, and then they'll have it live on in their library where they can pop it on their TV, do a hands-on, and really master the technique. So I'm so grateful for
That's
pioneers like
amazing.
you that have made hairdressers understand that you don't have to be, a corporate person that is forced to use technology. I think you talked about wearing a mask, being in a room without a mask for the first time. I think one of the gifts that the pandemic gave us is that people were forced to understand how to jump on a Zoom call. I don't have to struggle to get somebody to jump on the podcast or jump on one of my classes, because now it's like picking up a telephone and calling somebody, which is awesome.
Yeah. And there's, from a strategic perspective, there's definitely different strategies around people that want to do those big shows and have classrooms at their shows. That's never been part of Passion Squared's strategy. I prefer more intimate gatherings of whatever. So that show world really doesn't fit for like how I see the type of education that we do. The being conducive to that. I think, I mean, for the show, look, we've both been doing shows for decades. My first show was New York IBS when I was still in beauty school. So, I mean, literally been
That had to be
doing shows.
intimidating. My gosh, while you're in beauty school. That's
Yes,
amazing.
yes. We took a field trip because I went to school in Northern Virginia. So we took a bus. We took a bus a day. It was
We
a
did
day
the same
trip.
thing, a
We
day
took a
trip.
bus
Yeah,
to New
on a
York.
bus.
They dumped us at Javits, and I was just like jaw dropped all day. Met all the educator people that I ended up working with for 25 years that day. Like,
Amazing.
it was
Wow.
wild, it was wild. But there's definitely some magic that happens at those shows that is very different than people coming for some necessarily like education that's going to be retained and replicated when they get home. So there's the connection, there's the inspiration, there's meeting your mentors, there's just community, and there's a lot of great reasons, but that's never fit with us and our show.
Unfortunately for me, when I did the same exact thing. It was 1986. They dumped us. The day before, they highly recommended we pack a bag lunch. And I was like, I am not bringing a bag lunch to New York City. My ass is going out to lunch. I don't care how much it costs, thinking how bad could it be? And my girlfriend and I were like, okay, it's bad. Like, I think the burger in 1986 was $15,
Right.
and our
Right.
burgers here were like $4. So
Yeah.
it was really bad. I was like, oh, this is why they said to pack a lunch. But I remember walking in, I can see myself. I had a French manicure, which some things never change. French
love it.
manicure. And I remember walking in, and the first booth that I made contact with was the Sebastian booth, and Jerry Cosenza was up there. And I was just total chills, hair standing on end,
Yes.
like, oh my God, I get to do this for a living. Like, this
I
is going
know.
to be my job. Like, I just couldn't even believe how amazing it was.
Yeah.
So from that day, that very day with the hairs on end, I was like, I am going to be her. I am going to be up on that stage at these shows. That is my dream. I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to get on those shows. So by the time I met my goal, the shows don't pay anymore. And I'm like, okay, this is great. I have my Britney Spears microphone. I love that I get to do this. Thank God I have a love and passion for it, and I will do it for free. But when I talk to Vivian and Beth Minardi and, Joe Blackwell and all of the people that I looked up to and was like, I can't wait to be you. when they share with me what they used to earn for, an hour on stage, I'm like, oh man, why did that go away? Like, what the heck happened that the educator and the presenter is no longer the focal point of the education? It's about how many perms are sold on the floor, how many bajillion bottles of hairspray. It's like shifted so much that they're losing all of the really experienced mentors that have so much knowledge and love to share it, but they won't go to the shows because they can't get paid. Like, they even have to pay their own. And I know I've done it. I had to pay my own flight, my own meals, my own room. It cost me, most of the shows that I did, it cost me $2,000-$3,000 to be there. No
Yeah.
compensation whatsoever.
And
So that makes me sad, really sad.
It's a messed up model for sure. Of course, there's a lot of folks that have brand sponsorships, which, they're getting
Yes.
paid elsewhere. But, the shows they're having a little bumpy moment. They have an identity crisis. There's obviously been some acquisitions and reinventions. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, again, you and I have seen so many different iterations and changes and shifts. I'm always hopeful. I'm an optimist. I hope they get their shit together, but not paying artists is well, it's shitty. And can we cuss? Are we allowed to cuss?
Yep. Yep.
It's shitty. And unfortunately, typical in some cases, So we'll see. We'll see.
I think most hairstylists don't understand that, because
No.
2 years ago for Premier Orlando, I will always have a soft spot for Premier Orlando because they gave me my first shot. And because I taught there, then I was able to teach at IDS, then I was able to teach at ISSC, then I was able to teach, so it was like a, compound effect of like, oh, you have a resume now. So I have a soft spot for them. But 2 years ago, my daughter is like my right arm. She keeps me organized. I'm ADHD. She's super mega focused and organized and, totally different brain thoughts. And she would always man a table and she would sell my book and sign people up for things. And I really, really needed her to be there. But I was already in Florida 2 years ago and she was coming from PA. And the airline kept canceling her flight. She was there the day before. They sent her home after so many cancellations. She didn't get there until like my very last class. So I had to go to the first class by myself. I'm lugging this big, heavy duffel bag with all the books, all the things. And I'm still teaching and people are rushing the stage, just grabbing books, grabbing these level tools that I have. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. But it was all good because they loved what I said and they wanted things. But I was like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea if I just lost people were just throwing money in a bag, and somebody came out of the audience and started charging people and doing it for me. And during my talk, I said, I know it was really awesome, but I said, do you guys know that like when you watch people teaching here, unless they're on the main stage, supported by a manufacturer, like all these little classrooms that you're going to, including mine, we are not paid to be here. And we have to get here and we have to pay for our meals and we have to pay for our flight. And we have to pay for our hotel. And they were like, what? Like they couldn't even wrap themselves around it. Yeah. But it earned, for me, it earned even more respect from them that like, wow, she really is passionate about teaching hair color. Like, why the hell else would she be here?
Yeah. And
so
also
there's that.
It's inexcusable that these show companies that we know have millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. And I from what I understand, that idea came from, well, you're going to make all this money selling your stuff. But it's like, that's like 100 years ago, like thought process,
Exactly.
And even if you do, like, yay, like great that people can walk away, just like they walk away with buying a new color or, a new hairspray or a new scissor, like great, they can leave with a new coloring tool or a new book and whatever. That doesn't replace paying for labor. That makes me crazy. Like, no.
What do you see? How do you look at the future of our industry? I know we talk about the AI and how that's coming into play, and it can be really useful, it can be really scary. There's this, rush into suite model where everybody's bailing on commission salons and running to suites. And now I see them running back to either running a chair in a community because they missed that community piece. So there just seems to be, since the pandemic, so much change in the industry. If you had to sit with a crystal ball and do a prediction for say 5 years from today, what do you think is going to be the biggest surprise that we wouldn't see coming as far as that goes?
I don't know about surprise we wouldn't see coming. I think that some people are surprised at things that actually aren't surprising. This kind of pandemic shakeup, it was starting before the pandemic,
Yeah, very true.
and I think that the pandemic outside, forget our industry, there were a lot of different impacts that were had on people. And some of the actions and decisions that people have made are trauma responses, and short term. And some are more like, I'm changing my life. Like I was a workaholic and life is short. Some of those aha moments, like what I had in my mid 40s. So I think that that's kind of like a global thing. It's not really an industry thing. With the sweet thing, there are going to be people that are meant to be solo entrepreneurs, and that's fantastic. And there are people that are going to try to be solo entrepreneurs and say, you know what? I miss community. I want to go back to a lease model with, a group of people. And then there's some people that are like, you know what? I don't want to do any of this. I really value leadership and not having to deal with everything else. I want to go find an awesome employment-based salon with great leadership and culture. So, but that's always been the case, right? I mean, such a drive away from employment-based salons had to do with absent leadership or no leadership, and dysfunction and no boundaries and toxic cultures. And I mean, that's not new. That didn't start with the pandemic. So I think that if anything, what inspires me and brings me hope is that people began to connect with their feelings and their own emotional development and what matters to them. And that I believe we see with healthier boundaries and more focus on wellness and self-care, mental health, all of those things that were always needed, and ultimately create more happiness and more joy and healthier cultures and more awesome leadership. So I definitely think that I I see that developing. In terms of like technology and tools, I mean, in 2012, nobody would listen to me when I was talking about social and digital. So this industry moves slow.
Mhm.
It moves slow, you know? And so there's all this buzz around it could be anything, right? At this moment, it's AI. But it literally could be, it could be anything. But in terms of an actual helpful impact on the day-to-day life of our industry, I mean, what we've been sharing with our clients and recommending to our clients is really looking at AI in a very practical way. We focus a lot at Passion Squared on brand story, and where a lot of people get stuck with brand story is not the actual defining the brand, but then like what does that look like in captions and stuff like that. So AI is great for that because you can plug in the framework of your brand story and get a little boost when it comes to, well, what does that actually sound like in real life? The problem, and that could be the same with content ideas, and there's so many great things that newsletter writing, all that stuff. However, my biggest problem with it and my biggest concern with it is that it is very imperfect, and it takes a long time for it to understand your brand and your voice. So it may spit something out that you're like, oh, great, copy and paste. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
No copy and paste. You still have to put eyes on it. You still have to put context on it. You still have to put your brand voice on it. You still have to align it with your objectives and outcomes and your vision. So it's not set it and forget it, but nothing is. Like, it's not the magic pill. There are no magic pills, but it really can be helpful with really like with creativity. So that's in like the marketing, brand, content, storytelling space, that I see like instant practical application. Yeah.
I had the pleasure of meeting your BFF, Gordon, at an event here in Florida. As soon as I saw he was going to be there,
Oh
I'm like,
yes,
oh,
yes,
I'm going. Yeah.
yeah,
So we were talking, he brought the AI piece and we were talking about the state of the industry and all of the things that should and could be changed. One of them that I'm super passionate about is making licensing across the whole entire United States.
oh
Like,
yeah,
regardless of how many hours, regardless of whatever, like if you're licensed, you're licensed. Because speaking of like life changes and people feeling stuck, there's a lot of people that would leave their area and move somewhere else, but they don't want to have to go back to beauty school after being behind the chair for 20 years to
yeah,
do 200 more hours and take a test again. It's ridiculous. Supposedly the nursing one went through and now they're doing it hopefully for our industry. So
amazing.
that was a great event. And Gordon, I was beating Gordon's ear for an hour after the event.
Yeah,
I was just like,
he's very passionate about AI. He's been doing lots of podcasts on it. I too am passionate. I am just more like practical only because that's what I do all day with our clients is literally like practical application of
right.
things. So yes, is it gonna be amazing and helpful? Yeah, it already is. However, in my working with it, it is still, it's not like just like
Not
anything,
perfect
like you
yet.
can't just like
Yeah.
Google something and just take the first result and run. Like it's just not context, always context, context, context.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been 11 years. What do you have in store for us for the next 5 years? Anything new and exciting? You
I
are the queen
mean,
of the pivot. You can't just stay still. You have
I
to keep us on our
yeah,
toes.
I'm gonna keep writing books. I my third book has been in outline form for almost 9 years. And I just
Oh
kind of
boy.
I know, I pushed it to the side. So I've got a couple book concepts. I do want to write more. Um, so that's definitely something. I'm also looking at developing people to take over the company. Like I'm getting old, and Passion Squared is never about me. Like I had my I had my day in lights or whatever for way too long. Like I would be so happy to like never show my face on the internet ever again. And so, we have such amazing, brilliant, wise, incredible people in our community and clients that I hoped that they start, taking over Passion Square.
That's
I
amazing.
mean, so that's ultimately my long term, short long term plan. So yeah, I'm focused, I want to keep doing what we're doing. There's still so much work to be done in our industry around understanding the importance of brand as the foundation of literally everything we do. And it's just easily forgotten because it's not as much fun as applying hair color. You know, like I get it, you know,
Forgotten and misunderstood, to your point,
very misunderstood.
like I see a lot of people, especially when I moved here to Florida, I was looking for someone to do my hair and they're like, oh, so-and-so. And I go on and it doesn't even say where they are. There's a lot of assumption when they're posting that people just know that they're in a certain part of Florida. Like there's no location, there's no contact, and I'm like, there's definitely more that needs
Yeah,
to be
there's still a
done
lot
if you're
more
going to.
marketing stuff to do and, creating awesome experiences online. Like that stuff still, I mean, it says important, it's important every day, especially like we've been talking a lot this year with our clients about whether you believe there's a recession or not, or whether there is or there's not, or inflation, whatever, like all that aside, I truly believe that caring is going to make a comeback. and um and building trust, and creating value for clients. And it really goes back to the fundamentals. So I mean, so much of what we do in whether it's marketing or brand storytelling, all of that, it is the fundamentals. Like it's the fundamentals, something like making sure that people know where to find you, that you have because it's those little things that actually make a huge difference in, are you actually going to get a client? Like, are you going to get a client? Like, and then is that client going to come back because they are so stoked about their experience? Like, it's those fundamentals that will never go out of style, that will never
Exactly.
change depending on market whatevers. If we cannot be consistent with those fundamentals, it's going to be a bumpy road. I don't care what generation you're in. I don't care what business model it is. I mean, people have to care. And people know when we don't. And people
Mhm.
are not going to pay for experiences that are not what they value, that don't connect to what they value. So, I mean, there's a lot there, especially as prices go up and stuff like that. And it's like, where's the value? Because prices go up. I mean, of course they do. But where's the value in that? So yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
interesting stuff.
you're an absolute treasure to the industry. I'm so blessed to know you and so blessed to have you take the time today. So share with anyone listening how they can get more of you and Passion Squared.
Yeah, you can find us on the socials at Passion Squared and on the web at passionsquared.net.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina. And thank you
Thank
everyone
you,
for listening.
Elaine. It's so awesome to see your face.
Thank you.